The rain fell hard on New Pyongyang, just like it did every evening. Dae-hyun stood on the training field, watching the militia recruits practice their formations. They were slow, clumsy, but they were learning. That was enough for him these days. 3 years had passed since the court-martial. 3 years since he had worn the uniform of the Terran Navy. 3 years since anyone had called him captain. Now he was just Hyun, a military consultant. A trainer of farmers and shopkeepers who needed to defend their colony from raiders and pirates. It was honest work. Quiet work. The kind of work that let him sleep at night even if the nightmares still came. "Sir?" One of the recruits jogged over, breathing hard. "We're done with the drills. Should we clean the weapons?" Hyun nodded. "Clean them, oil them. Check every part. A weapon that fails is worse than no weapon at all." The young man saluted awkwardly and ran back to his squad. Hyun almost smiled. They were getting better. Not good, but better. He turned to walk back to his small office when he saw the transport ship landing on the far pad. Military grade. Terran Navy markings. His stomach tightened. Nothing good ever came from those ships. Not for him. A woman in a commander's uniform stepped out. Even from a distance, Hyun recognized her walk. Confident, purposeful. Yuna had always moved like she owned whatever ground she walked on. "Captain Dae-hyun," she called out as she approached. Her voice carried across the field. "Just Hyun now," he replied. "You know that." Yuna stopped in front of him. She looked the same as she did 3 years ago. Sharp eyes. No-nonsense expression. "I'm here on official business. I'm not interested in official business. You will be interested in this." She handed him a datapad. "Read it." Hyun took the pad reluctantly. His eyes scanned the text. Then he read it again, slower this time. "This is a joke. It's not a joke. The Galactic Assembly has agreed to trial by combat. 1 champion from each side. Winner takes the entire Outer Veil sector. No more war. No more deaths." Hyun handed the pad back. "Then pick a champion. The Navy has plenty of soldiers better than me. They want you." He laughed. It was a bitter sound. "Who wants me? The same people who took my rank? The same people who called me a traitor?" Yuna's expression didn't change. "The same people who know what you did. The same people who know why you did it. The same people who are finally ready to use you the way you were meant to be used." "And what way is that?" "As a weapon." The words hung in the air between them. Rain pattered on their shoulders. In the distance, the recruits were laughing about something. Normal sounds, safe sounds. Hyun shook his head. "Find someone else. There is no one else. The Assembly's champion is Krell, Vorath warrior, 8 feet tall, undefeated in 47 death matches. He's killed champions from 6 different species. He's fast, strong, and he's never shown mercy. Then you need someone stronger than me, someone faster." Yuna stepped closer. Her voice dropped. "I don't need someone stronger. I need someone smarter. I need someone who thinks 10 steps ahead. I need someone who knows how to win when winning should be impossible. I'm not that person anymore." "Yes, you are. You've always been that person. That's why they feared you enough to court-martial you. That's why they've kept you out here, training farmers instead of leading fleets." She paused. "That's why the Assembly won't take you seriously. And that's exactly what we need." Hyun was quiet for a long moment. He watched the rain fall. He thought about the last 3 years. The quiet. The peace. The slow healing of old wounds. "What if I lose?" he asked finally. "Then we lose the sector. The war continues. Thousands more die." Yuna's voice was flat. "But you won't lose. You don't know that. I do know that. I've seen your records. The real ones. Not the sanitized versions they show the public." She held up the datapad again. "This is your chance to finish what you started. To show them what you really are." Hyun took the pad again. He scrolled through the information. Details about Krell. Videos of his fights, statistics, analysis. All of it painted the same picture. The Vorath warrior was a killing machine. "When?" Hyun asked. 2 months. The arena is being built on Neutral Station Janus 4. 5 square kilometers. Mixed terrain. Pre-industrial weapons only. And the Assembly thinks this is fair? The Assembly thinks this is a gift. They've been broadcasting Krell's training sessions across their entire territory. They're selling viewing rights. They think they've already won. Yuna's lips curved slightly. They're calling it the human's final humiliation. Hyun handed back the pad one more time. "Tell them I need my own team. My own people." Yuna's almost smile became real. Already arranged. Tae-young is on his way, and we've assigned a combat physician named Sue to your training. Tae-young? Hyun felt something loosen in his chest. He stood with me at the court-martial. He never stopped standing with you. None of your real people did. Yuna turned to leave, then stopped. One more thing. The assembly diplomat made a speech yesterday. He said humanity's first error was doubting our own kind. He said they would make no such mistake with their champion. They're right. Doubting our own people is an error. Yes, but their error is bigger. Yuna met his eyes. Their error is thinking they've seen what humans can do. Their error is thinking war is about honor and strength and glory. What is war about? Survival. And nobody survives like humans do. After Yuna left, Hyun stood in the rain for a long time. His recruits had finished cleaning their weapons and gone home. The training field was empty. The sky was dark. He thought about the court-martial. 3 destroyers lost, 5,000 civilians saved. The admirals had called him reckless, dangerous, a man who couldn't follow orders. They had stripped his rank and sent him away, but they had been wrong about one thing. He wasn't reckless. Everything he did was calculated. Every choice was measured. They just didn't like the calculations. They didn't like what those calculations revealed about the true cost of war. Now they wanted him back. Not because they understood him, not because they trusted him, but because they needed someone the assembly wouldn't fear, someone who looked like he'd already lost. Hyun pulled out his personal communicator and recorded a message. It would take 6 days to reach Earth, 6 days for the Terran High Command to receive his answer. This is Dae-hyun. I accept your terms. I'll be your champion. I'll fight Krell. I'll win your sector. He paused, choosing his next words carefully. But know this. When I win, when I show the assembly what a human can really do, there's no going back. They'll see us differently. They'll fear us. And fear doesn't always lead to peace. He ended the recording and sent it. Then he walked back to his office. He had 2 months to prepare. 2 months to become what they needed him to be. 2 months to turn himself back into the weapon he'd tried so hard to bury. The rain fell harder. Somewhere far away on a dozen different worlds, aliens were laughing at humanity's choice of champion. They were placing bets. They were celebrating their coming victory. Let them laugh, Hyun thought. Let them celebrate. The first error was theirs. Tae-young arrived on a cold morning. Hyun saw him stepping off the transport, and for a moment, time seemed to fold backward. 3 years disappeared. They were back on the bridge of the destroyer Incheon, planning impossible missions and somehow making them work. Captain, Tae-young said, snapping a crisp salute. I'm not a captain anymore, Hyun replied, but he returned the salute anyway. Old habits. You'll always be captain to me, sir. They gripped hands, and Hyun felt the weight of those 3 years lift slightly. Tae-young looked older. Gray touched his temples. New scars marked his hands, but his eyes were the same, sharp, loyal, unbreakable. I heard you made commander, Hyun said. I turned it down. Told them I'd rather train recruits in the outer colonies. Tae-young grinned. Turns out I'm good at teaching farmers how to fight. Sounds familiar. Learned from the best. They walked together to Hyun's office. It wasn't much. A desk, a few chairs, maps on the wall showing defensive positions for the colony. Tae-young looked around and nodded approvingly. Simple, efficient. Very you. Hyun poured 2 cups of tea. Real tea, not the synthetic stuff from the military rations. Tell me what you know about this trial by combat. Tae-young's expression turned serious. The assembly set it up after the Battle of Orion's Gate. Both sides lost too many ships. Too many people. The politicians wanted a way out that didn't look like surrender. So they agreed to this ancient tradition. One champion. One fight. Winner takes the disputed territory. And they chose Krell. Of course they did. He's their greatest warrior. He's beaten everyone they've put in front of him. The assembly thinks he's unbeatable. What do you think? Tae-young sipped his tea slowly. I think Krell has never fought a human who was actually trying to kill him. All his matches followed rules. Honor codes. Ways of fighting that make sense to aliens. He set down his cup. But you don't fight that way, sir. You never have. The door opened without warning. A woman walked in carrying a medical kit. She was short, compact, with quick movements and watchful eyes. She looked at Hyun like a scientist examining an interesting specimen. You're Dae-hyun? She asked. Yes. I'm Soo, combat physician. I'm here to keep you alive while you train. She dropped her kit on the desk. Stripped to your waist. I need to do a full medical scan. Maybe introduce yourself first, Tae-young suggested with a smile. I just did. Now strip, or I'll report that you're being uncooperative. Hyun almost laughed. Almost. Instead, he removed his shirt. Sue pulled out a scanner and ran it over his chest, back and arms. She frowned at the readout. Old injuries. Badly healed. You've got scar tissue in your left shoulder that's limiting your range of motion. She looked up. Why didn't you get proper treatment? I wasn't in the Navy anymore. No access to military doctors. Idiots. She typed notes into her scanner. I can fix most of this. It'll hurt, but you'll be at 98% capacity by the time we're done. When do we start? Now. She pulled out a neural stimulator. This will hurt worse than anything you've felt in years. Don't scream. I hate it when they scream. The treatment took 3 hours. She was right about the pain. Hyun gripped the edge of the desk and focused on breathing. Tae-young watched with a sympathetic expression, but didn't offer any useless comfort. That was good. Hyun didn't need comfort. He needed to be ready. When Sue finally finished, Hyun's shoulder felt like it was on fire. But when he moved it, the old stiffness was gone. The catch that had bothered him for 3 years had disappeared. Better? Sue asked. He rolled his shoulder experimentally. Much better. Good, tomorrow we start on your legs. You've got damage in your right knee, too. After Sue left, Hyun and Tae-young sat in silence for a moment. Through the window, they could see the transport pad. Another ship was landing. Media, probably. The story was already spreading across human space. The disgraced captain. The impossible challenge. The alien champion who had never lost. They're going to doubt you, Tae-young said quietly. Our own people. They're going to think we've already lost. I know. Does it bother you? Hyun thought about it. No, their doubt is useful. The more they doubt, the more the assembly will doubt, and doubt makes people careless. That's why you took the fall 3 years ago, wasn't it? The court-martial. The destroyers. I don't want to talk about that. We need to talk about it, because what you did then is exactly what you're going to do now. Tae-young leaned forward. You let them think you made a mistake. You let them believe you were reckless. But you weren't. You knew exactly what you were doing. You saved those civilians and you protected classified information about our tactical capabilities. You took the blame to keep the assembly from learning how we really fight. Hyun didn't answer, but he didn't deny it either. And now you're going to do it again, Tae-young continued. You're going to let everyone think you're weak, broken, easy to beat, and then you're going to show them what a real human warfighter looks like. A knock at the door interrupted them. A young officer entered, saluted nervously. Sir, there's a media broadcast from the assembly. They thought you'd want to see it. Tae-young pulled up the feed on his datapad. The screen showed a massive training facility. In the center, Krell stood like a mountain, 8 feet of scaled muscle and killing intent. He was sparring with 3 opponents, warriors from different species, all trained fighters. Krell moved like thunder. One opponent went down with a crushed helmet. The second flew across the room from a single punch. The third tried to attack from behind. Krell spun and caught him by the throat, lifting him off the ground with one hand. The demonstration ended. The camera focused on Krell's face. His reptilian features twisted into what might have been a smile. When he spoke, translators rendered his words in human languages. I have heard of my opponent. A human named Dae-hyun. They say he was a captain once. They say he lost his rank. They say he trains farmers now. Krell's laugh was like rocks grinding together. I have killed champions. I have killed warriors. And now I will kill a farmer who thinks he is a soldier. The humans make their error in choosing such a weak representative. But I will make no error. I will finish this quickly. I will show mercy by making his death fast. The broadcast ended. The young officer looked pale. Sir, the media is asking for your response. They want to interview you. No interviews, Hyun said. But sir, the entire galaxy is watching. They're all saying, I know what they're saying. Let them say it. After the officer left, Tae-young closed the datapad. He's trying to get in your head. Standard psychological warfare. I know. It won't work on you. I know that too. Hyun stood and walked to the window. But it'll work on everyone else. That's the point. The more they believe I'm weak, the more effective I'll be. What's the plan, sir? Hyun was quiet for a long moment. He watched the colony below. People going about their lives, working, laughing, living in peace because they didn't know what real war looked like. He'd kept it from them. He'd taken the blame. He'd carried the weight so they wouldn't have to. Now he'd carry it again. But this time the whole galaxy would watch. The plan is simple, he finally said. I'm going to teach them something they've never learned. I'm going to show them what happens when you give a human warrior no rules and tell him to survive. They'll call it dishonorable. They will. They'll call it savage. They will. Good, Tae-young said with a grim smile. Let them learn to fear us properly. Outside, the rain started falling again. Somewhere far away on alien worlds, they were celebrating. They were broadcasting Krell's training. They were selling tickets to watch the humans' humiliation. Hyun began to plan. Not like a soldier planning a battle, like a predator planning a hunt. The second error was theirs. They thought showing strength would win the fight. But Hyun knew better. Strength didn't matter. Speed didn't matter. Size didn't matter. What mattered was being willing to do whatever it took to win, and no species in the galaxy was better at survival than humans. The neutral station Janus 4 floated in the space between territories. Neither human nor alien, a perfect place for what the galaxy was calling the final test. Media ships surrounded it like flies around meat. 200 billion beings across a dozen worlds would watch what happened next. Hyun stood in his preparation room, checking his equipment. A short sword, a knife, both simple steel. No technology. No energy weapons. Just metal and edge. The rules demanded it. Pre-industrial weapons only. Personal shields for basic protection, but nothing else. Sue was wrapping his hands with cloth bandages. Her fingers moved quickly, efficiently. Your shoulder is good. Your knee is good. Your reaction times are optimal. She tied off the last bandage. But that won't matter much against Krell. He's bigger, stronger, and faster than you. I know. So how are you going to win? Hyun looked at her. By not fighting the way he expects. Tae-young entered the room with a data pad. The arena is ready. 5 square kilometers, just like they said. Urban ruins on the east side. Forest in the center. Rocky highlands to the west. They've placed water sources throughout. No escape, no surrender. Fight until one champion falls. How many are watching? Last count? 203 billion. Tae-young's expression was grim. The assembly is broadcasting it as entertainment. The human's last stand, they're calling it. Betting odds are 1,000 to 1 against you. Good odds, if you were planning to bet. Hyun picked up his sword. The weight was perfect, balanced, simple. He'd refused all the fancy weapons they'd offered. No elaborate designs, no ceremonial decorations. Just a tool for killing. Commander Yuna sent a message, Tae-young said. She wanted you to know that the Terran High Command is watching. The President is watching. Everyone is watching. No pressure then. She also said to remind you of something. Your exact words from 3 years ago. I did what was necessary. I'll do it again if I must, Hyun remembered. The court-martial. The Admiral's demanding answers. Him standing alone, taking responsibility for decisions that had saved thousands but cost ships and careers. He'd meant those words then. He meant them now. Time? He asked. 10 minutes. The ceremony starts soon. The ceremony was elaborate. Alien dignitaries gave speeches about honor and tradition. Human representatives spoke about courage and sacrifice. Musicians played both human and alien anthems. The whole thing felt like a funeral dressed up as a celebration. Hyun waited, watched, listened. He saw Krell being introduced to thunderous applause from the alien sections. The Vorith warrior raised his massive axe. The crowd roared. He looked like a god of war. Unstoppable, inevitable, perfect. When they called Hyun's name, the human sections cheered. But it was a desperate sound. Hopeful but not confident. They wanted to believe. They just didn't know how to believe in someone the galaxy had already dismissed. Hyun walked to his starting position in the arena. The ground was rough concrete. Broken buildings rose around him. This was the urban section. Good. He understood urban warfare. He'd trained in ruins and wreckage. This was familiar territory. Across the arena, nearly 5 kilometers away, Krell stood in the highlands. Even at this distance, Hyun could see his massive form. The alien warrior was beating his chest and roaring. The crowd loved it. An announcer's voice echoed across the arena. Speaking in multiple languages, explaining the rules one final time. No outside interference. No technological weapons. Fight until one champion could no longer continue. The winner's civilization would claim the entire Outer Veil sector. Thousands of worlds, billions of lives, all depending on this one fight. The countdown began. 10 seconds, 9, 8, Hyun breathed slowly, centered himself. This was no different than 100 other operations he'd planned. Assess the situation. Identify advantages, exploit weaknesses, survive. 3, 2, 1. The battle began. Krell charged immediately. Hyun heard his roar echo across the arena. The crowd screamed with excitement. They expected a clash. A meeting of warriors. Steel against steel. Honor against honor. Instead, Hyun turned and ran into the ruins. The crowd's excitement turned to confusion. Commentators struggled to explain what they were seeing. The human champion was running, fleeing. Had he lost his nerve? Hyun ignored the noise. He moved quickly through the broken buildings. His feet were light on rubble. His breath was controlled. He wasn't running from fear. He was hunting. And the first rule of hunting was choosing your ground. Krell reached the urban ruins and paused. Hyun watched from a third-story window, perfectly still. The Vorath warrior looked around, confused. Where was his opponent? Where was the fight? Human. Krell's voice boomed. Face me with honor. Hyun didn't answer. He moved to a different position. Silent. Patient. Krell smashed into a building, crushing concrete and steel. Coward, fight me. Still, Hyun waited. He watched Krell's patterns. The way he moved. The way he searched, looking for big movements, obvious threats. Krell was a warrior. He understood combat, duels, tests of strength. But Hyun wasn't a warrior. Not the way Krell understood the word. Hyun was a soldier. And soldiers didn't fight for honor. They fought to win. 1 hour passed. Krell was getting frustrated. He'd been destroying buildings, roaring challenges, demanding his opponent show himself. The crowd was confused. Commentators were trying to explain what was happening. Some called it cowardice, others called it strategy. None of them understood yet. Hyun made his first move. He appeared on a rooftop just for a moment. Long enough for Krell to see him. Long enough for the warrior to charge. By the time Krell reached the building, Hyun was gone. But he'd left something behind. A tripwire, simple rope stretched across a doorway. Krell smashed through, didn't even notice the wire. It caught his foot. He stumbled, caught himself. Looked down at the rope with confusion. What was this? A child's trap? Then he felt the sting on his calf. A small cut, barely anything. He'd been hurt worse in training. He looked around for the blade that had cut him but found nothing. Just buildings, shadows, silence. Hyun was already 3 buildings away. He'd used a simple spring trap. A blade on a hinge released by the tripwire. Nothing sophisticated. Something farmers might use to defend their homes. 2 hours passed. Krell had 6 more small cuts. Each one shallow. Each one precise. He was bleeding, but not badly. Not enough to slow him down. But something had changed in his eyes. Something that looked almost like concern. 3 hours in, and Krell stopped roaring challenges. He moved more carefully now. Checking corners. Looking up. Looking down. His confidence had cracked. The crowd had gone quieter. The alien sections weren't cheering anymore. They were watching with something that might have been unease. The human sections were leaning forward, starting to understand what they were seeing. This wasn't a duel. This was a hunt. And the prey was the 8-foot warrior with the axe. In the command center, Commander Yuna watched the screens with satisfaction. An assembly diplomat stood beside her, his crystalline features reflecting confusion. Your champion runs and hides, the diplomat said. Is this human honor? We don't fight for honor, Yuna replied calmly. We fight to survive, and we're very, very good at it. On screen, Krell was breathing harder now, looking over his shoulder, jumping at shadows. The invincible warrior was learning what humans had known for thousands of years. Being strong didn't matter if you couldn't find your enemy. Being fast didn't matter if you were always chasing. Being skilled in combat didn't matter if you never got close enough to fight. 4 hours passed. Krell had 20 cuts now, none fatal, none disabling, but each one precise, each one intentional, each one a message. I can touch you whenever I want. I can hurt you whenever I choose. You can't stop me. Night fell in the arena. Artificial lighting dimmed to simulate natural darkness. This was part of the rules. Day and night cycles, weather effects. Making it more realistic, Krell stood in a clearing, axe ready, turning slowly in circles. His eyes were wide, His breath was fast. For the first time in 47 death matches. He was afraid, and somewhere in the darkness, Hyun waited, patient, calm, doing exactly what humans had done for millennia when facing larger, stronger predators, using their brains, using their patience, using their understanding that survival wasn't about being the biggest or the strongest, it was about being willing to wait, to plan, to strike when the moment was right. The final error was letting him enter the battlefield, because once Hyun was in his element, the outcome was never in doubt. It was just a matter of time. Dawn came slowly to the arena. Artificial light gradually brightened, mimicking sunrise. Cameras focused on Krell still standing in his clearing. He hadn't slept, couldn't sleep. Every shadow might hide the human. Every sound might be an attack. The great warrior looked tired. His scales, usually bright and threatening, seemed duller. His movements were slower, more careful. The 47 victories in his past meant nothing now. This fight was different. This enemy was different. In the broadcast centers across alien space, military analysts were reviewing the footage from the night. One analyst, a tactical specialist named Wu, had been watching with growing horror. "Rewind that section," he told his assistant. The moment at 0300 hours. The screen showed Krell spinning toward a noise. Just a falling rock. Nothing there. But while he was distracted, a shadow moved in the opposite direction. So fast it was almost invisible. There and gone. He made that noise deliberately, Wu said slowly. He wanted Krell to turn. While the warrior was looking one way, the human moved another direction. But why? He didn't even attack. That's exactly the point. He's not trying to damage Krell's body. He's trying to damage his mind. Wu's hands trembled slightly. This is psychological warfare, and humans are masters at it. Another analyst joined them. I've been tracking the cuts. 37 so far, all shallow, all non-critical. But look at the pattern. The screen displayed a map of Krell's body marked with red dots showing each injury. They formed a perfect grid, organized, systematic, like someone was checking off boxes on a list. He's proving a point, the first analyst said. He can hit anywhere he wants, anytime he wants, and Krell can't stop him. Back in the arena, Hyun watched from his position in the forest. He'd moved during the night, leaving the urban ruins behind. The forest gave him different advantages. More cover, better sight lines, natural sounds to mask his movement. He studied Krell carefully. The warrior was exhausted. Not from injury, from stress, from fear, from the constant vigilance required when your enemy could be anywhere. This was the truth that most alien species didn't understand. Combat wasn't just physical. It was mental, emotional, psychological. You could be the strongest fighter in the galaxy and still lose if your mind broke first. Hyun had spent 2 months preparing for this, not by building muscle, not by practicing sword techniques, by studying Krell, understanding him, learning how he thought, how he fought, what he feared. Every warrior feared something, usually death, sometimes pain, but Krell feared uncertainty. He was a creature of ritual combat, rules, structures, predictable patterns. So Hyun gave him uncertainty, no patterns, no predictability, just endless possibility of attack from any direction at any moment. It was breaking him. Midday came. The artificial sun was high, temperature rising. Krell had moved to the water source to drink. Hyun had known he would. The warrior was dehydrated from stress and exertion. While Krell drank, Hyun moved closer. Not to attack, just to watch. Just to let Krell see him for one brief moment before vanishing again. Krell roared and threw his axe. It spun through the air, crashed through trees. Missed by meters. The warrior stood there, breathing hard, staring at the forest. "Why won't you fight me?" he screamed. "Face me like a warrior!" Hyun didn't answer. Warriors fought. Soldiers survived. The difference was everything. In the human sections of the watching crowd, something was changing. The initial disappointment had shifted. People were beginning to understand. Their champion wasn't being cowardly. He was being smart, efficient, deadly. A military commentator on the human broadcast explained it carefully. What we're watching is the difference between combat and warfare. Krell expects combat, rules, honor, a test of skill. But Captain Daehyun is waging war. And in war, the only rule is survive. The only honor is victory. Tae-young watched from the command center, a slight smile on his face. Sue stood beside him, arms crossed. How long can he keep this up? She asked. As long as he needs to. The captain is patient. He can wait days if necessary. Krell won't last days. Look at him. He's already breaking. It was true. On the screens, Krell was talking to himself, muttering. His eyes were too wide. His movements were jerky. The perfect warrior was coming apart. I've seen this before, Tae-young said quietly. In soldiers who were hunted, stalked, never given a moment's peace. The human mind isn't built for that kind of stress. Neither is the Vorath mind, apparently. Commander Yuna entered the room. She looked tired but satisfied. The assembly is demanding we call off the fight. They're saying it's inhumane. Inhumane? Tae-young almost laughed. They chose trial by combat. They picked their champion. They made the rules. Now they want to quit because they're losing? That's what I told them. Much less politely. Yuna watched the screens. How much longer? Soon. Krell is at his breaking point. The captain will finish it when he's ready. As if hearing them, Hyun decided it was time. He'd been hunting for 12 hours, studying, learning, taking measurements. Now he knew everything he needed to know about his opponent. Krell's left side was weaker, old injury perhaps. He favored his right when turning. His eyes tracked movement better horizontally than vertically. His reaction time slowed when he was focused on a threat in front of him. Small details. But details were everything. Hyun moved through the forest toward the rocky highlands. This is where he would end it. Open ground. No place to hide. The kind of terrain Krell understood. The kind of place where the warrior would feel confident. It was a trap, of course, but Krell wouldn't realize that until too late. Hyun stepped into the clearing on the highlands. Stood in full view, waited. Krell saw him immediately. The warrior's exhaustion seemed to fall away. Finally, the human was ready to fight properly. No more shadows. No more tricks. Just warrior against warrior. Krell retrieved his axe and charged. His roar shook the air. The crowd erupted in excitement. This was what they'd been waiting for. The clash. The combat. The end. Hyun stood perfectly still, watching, measuring, calculating. Krell was fast, powerful. His axe swung in a perfect arc, aimed at Hyun's head. A killing blow. At the last possible moment, Hyun moved, not backward, not to the side. Forward and down, sliding under the axe swing, his sword moving in a precise strike at Krell's left knee. The blade found the gap in the warrior's natural armor, found the old injury, found the weakness Hyun had spent 12 hours identifying. Krell stumbled. Hyun was already past him, spinning, his sword striking twice more. Right hamstring, left calf, both cuts precise, surgical, designed to disable, not kill. Krell fell to one knee, tried to stand, couldn't. His legs wouldn't support him anymore. The warrior swung his axe wildly. Hyun danced back, avoiding it easily. Then he stopped. Lowered his sword, waited. Get up, Hyun said. First words he'd spoken to his opponent. Krell tried. Failed. Tried again. His legs were finished. The cuts had severed critical tendons. He couldn't walk. Couldn't run. Could barely kneel. Get up and fight me, Hyun repeated. His voice was calm. Empty of emotion. I cannot. Krell's voice was broken. Defeated. The arena was silent. 200 billion beings watching, waiting. Hyun walked closer. Stood over the fallen warrior. His sword was steady. His breathing was calm. You asked me to face you like a warrior, Hyun said. But I'm not a warrior. I'm a soldier. We don't fight for honor. We don't fight for glory. We fight to survive, to win, to protect our people, and we will do anything. Use any tactic. Embrace any method that gives us victory. He pressed his blade to Krell's throat. Not hard enough to cut, just hard enough to feel. Your error was thinking war is about being strong. War is about being smart, about being patient, about understanding your enemy better than they understand themselves. Krell closed his eyes, waiting for death, but Hyun stepped back, lowered his sword. Yield, he said. Tell them you yield. Live to fight again. Learn from this. Krell opened his eyes, looked up at the human. For a moment, something like respect crossed his reptilian features. I yield, he said quietly. Then, louder, for the cameras. I yield. The human has won. The arena erupted. Cheering, screaming, disbelief, celebration, horror. Every emotion at once from billions of beings watching. Hyun stood in the middle of it all. Sword lowered, looking up at the cameras, showing the galaxy what humanity could do, showing them their error. The medical team rushed into the arena. They surrounded Krell, checking his injuries, stabilizing him for transport. The great warrior didn't resist. He kept his eyes on Hyun as they carried him away. Not with hatred. With something closer to understanding, Hyun walked slowly toward the exit. Every step felt heavy. Not from exhaustion. From the weight of what he'd just done. He'd shown the galaxy something they'd never seen before. Something they'd never forget. Taeyoung and Sue met him at the entrance. Sue immediately began checking him over, scanning for injuries. She found a few bruises, scratches, nothing serious. Hyun had barely been touched during the entire fight. 12 hours, Taeyoung said quietly. 12 hours of psychological warfare. That might be a record. It wasn't about the time. It was about the lesson. What lesson? Hyun looked back at the arena. That strength isn't enough. That rules can be used against you. That humans fight differently than they expected. Commander Yuna appeared, surrounded by guards and officials. Her expression was carefully neutral. Congratulations, Captain. You've won the Outer Veil sector for humanity. The Assembly has already confirmed their acceptance of the trial's outcome. I'm not a captain. You are now. Full reinstatement. Full back pay for the last 3 years. Complete expungement of your record. She handed him a data pad. Official orders from the President. You're to report to Terran Naval Command for reassignment. Hyun took the pad but didn't look at it. What's the catch? No catch. You did what we asked. You won. Yuna, what's the catch? She sighed. The catch is that every alien military in the galaxy is now studying that fight. They're analyzing your tactics. They're understanding how humans really wage war. The Assembly is terrified. 3 of their member species are already requesting immediate peace negotiations. That was the point. Yes. But terror doesn't always lead to peace. Sometimes it leads to desperate action. We've made enemies fear us. Now we have to deal with the consequences. They walked together through the corridors of Janus 4. Media crews tried to stop them. Hyun ignored them all. He had nothing to say to cameras. Nothing to say to crowds. He'd delivered his message in the arena. Words were unnecessary. In a private conference room, Ambassador Gina was waiting. She was older than Hyun, with gray hair and sharp eyes. She'd been negotiating with the Assembly for 5 years. She understood aliens better than most humans. Captain Dae-hyun, she greeted him. That was quite a performance. It wasn't a performance. It was a fight. No, it was a demonstration. And it worked perfectly. She pulled up a star map. Red zones marked Assembly territory. Blue marked human space. Yellow marked the disputed Outer Veil sector. As of 1 hour ago, the Assembly formally ceded this entire region to humanity. Thousands of worlds. Billions of potential colonists. Resources worth more than we can calculate. At what cost? Gina smiled slightly. You understand the real question. Good. The cost is that the Assembly now sees us as predators. Not partners. Not equals. Predators. She zoomed in on several star systems. These 4 species have requested increased military budgets. These 2 have started mandatory warrior training programs. This one is developing new weapons specifically designed to counter human tactics. So we've started an arms race. We've ended a war. The Assembly can't afford to fight us anymore. They're too afraid of what we might do. But yes, we've started something else. A Cold War, perhaps. Mutual fear instead of mutual trust. Hyun sat down heavily. This was what he'd feared. What he'd tried to warn them about in his message to Yuna. Fear didn't lead to peace. It led to tension, paranoia, eventual conflict. There's something else, Gina said carefully. The footage of your fight has spread beyond military circles. Civilian populations across alien space have seen it. Some are calling you a monster. Others are calling you the most dangerous being in the galaxy. Songs are being written about you, stories, legends. You've become a symbol. Of what? Of humanity's true nature. Or at least what they think our true nature is. Patient, calculating, willing to use any method to win. She paused. Is that what we are, Captain? Is that what you showed them? Hyun thought about the question. He thought about 3 years of training farmers. Of teaching defense, not offense. Of showing ordinary people how to protect their homes without becoming killers. I showed them one way humans fight. When we're cornered. When we have no choice. When survival depends on victory. He met her eyes. But that's not all we are. We're also farmers, teachers, artists, healers, parents. We build more than we destroy. We create more than we kill. They didn't see that part. No. They didn't. Ambassador Gina closed the star map. Then that's your next assignment, Captain. Show them the rest. The Assembly wants to meet you properly, not as an enemy, as a representative of humanity. They want to understand us better. They want to know if they should fear us or trust us. Can't they do both? That's exactly what you need to help them figure out. 3 days later, Hyun stood in the assembly hall on Diplomatic Station Nova. 12 species. Hundreds of representatives. All of them watching him carefully. Some with obvious fear, others with curiosity, all with respect. Ambassador Gina introduced him formally, recited his accomplishments. His service record. The trial by combat. She made him sound like a legend. A hero. When it was his turn to speak, Hyun kept it simple. 3 years ago, I lost my rank. I made decisions that saved civilians but cost military assets. The admirals called me reckless. They said I couldn't follow orders. They were right. When following orders means letting innocents die, I won't follow them. He paused, letting that sink in. In the arena, I showed you how humans fight when we must. But that's not how we want to fight. We prefer peace. We prefer cooperation. We prefer building things together instead of tearing each other apart. He gestured to the assembled aliens. You made 2 errors. The first was doubting me. The second was letting me enter that battlefield. But I'm here to tell you that you can avoid a 3rd error. What error? Asked a Vorath diplomat. Not Krell, but someone who knew him well. The error of thinking that because we can fight like predators, we want to. We don't. We'd rather be partners, allies, friends. Hyun's voice was steady, sincere. But if you force us to choose between peace and survival, we'll choose survival every time. That's the lesson. That's what you need to understand about humanity. The hall was silent for a long moment. Then surprisingly, the Vorath diplomat stood, bowed formally. Your warrior Krell sends his regards. He says you taught him more in 12 hours than he learned in 47 victories. He says he would be honored to train with human soldiers, to learn your methods, to understand your ways. Other diplomats began standing, making similar offers. Cultural exchanges, military training programs, scientific partnerships. The fear was still there, but it was mixing with something else now. Respect, understanding, maybe even trust. After the session ended, Tae-young found Hyun in a quiet observation deck. They stood together looking out at the stars. You did it, sir. You ended the war. You won the sector. You showed them what we can do. And then you showed them what we want to do. Build peace. It won't last forever. Someday we'll have to fight again. Maybe, but today isn't that day. Today they're afraid enough to negotiate. Respectful enough to listen. That's enough, Hyun nodded slowly. He thought about New Pyongyang. His recruits. The quiet work of teaching defense. He'd been happy there, content, but this was important too. Showing the galaxy that humans were more than weapons, more than predators, that they could choose peace even when they were capable of war. What will you do now? Tae-young asked. Go back to training farmers, probably. Someone has to teach the next generation how to defend themselves without becoming monsters. That sounds like you, sir. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the stars. Out there, across thousands of worlds, billions of beings were learning about humanity. Learning to fear them, learning to respect them, learning hopefully to work with them. The first error had been doubting him. The final error had been letting him enter the battlefield. But there wouldn't be a 3rd error. Not if Hyun could help it, because he'd shown them the truth. Humans could be fierce when necessary, but they preferred to be kind. Could wage war when forced, but preferred to build peace. Could become monsters when survival demanded it, but chose to remain human. That was the real lesson, the one that mattered most, and the galaxy would remember it for a very long time. Behind them, Sue appeared with medical supplies. Captain, you need to come with me. Your shoulder is showing signs of inflammation, Hyun sighed. I'm fine. That's not your decision to make. I'm the doctor. You're the patient. Let's go. Tae-young laughed as Hyun followed Sue reluctantly. Some things never changed. Warriors became legends. Legends became diplomats. But doctors remained doctors. Stubborn, insistent, and absolutely necessary. The war was over. Peace was beginning. And somewhere on New Pyongyang, Hyun's recruits were practicing their formations, getting better every day, just like he'd taught them, just like he'd continue to teach them, because that's what humans did best. They survived. They adapted. They learned. They taught. And they never ever gave up, not in war, not in peace, not ever. That was the real human story, and it was just beginning.